Hey everyone, it's Miss Portelli here. Today's video we are going to be having a look at water balance in humans, also known as osmoregulation. Just a quick recap before we have a look at how this happens in detail. For this particular homeostatic mechanism, we're going to need to think back to our knowledge and understanding of the structure of the kidney. So I'd just like to remind everyone, obviously we have two kidneys in our body. And each of those kidneys is made up of millions and millions of nephrons. So that's what you're seeing in that highlighted box on the screen there. So the nephron is the yellow structure within that box. The important part of the nephron that we are going to be referring to in today's video is the kidney tubule, aka the nephron, but specifically the loop of Henle. Okay, so down here, loop of Henle, this loop that goes down and then up, and this is where the majority of our water reabsorption happens, if it's going to happen at all. So we are continuing to have a look at this dot point that we've been looking at for a little while now. Our focus, as I said before, for today's video is going to be on water balance, and that will allow us to draw on our knowledge, yes, of the kidney, which we looked at before the holidays, but also what we've learned about the stimulus response models and feedback loops, in particular negative feedback loops today. So let's have a look. Okay, now let's have a look at our stimulus response model for our osmoregulation or water regulation within our body. This is an example of a negative feedback loop or a negative stimulus response model. So we're going to be looking for signs that our stimulus, whatever is triggering our body to do this feedback loop, the response is going to be reducing or stopping that original stimulus. So we want to undo that original stimulus and take our body back to its normal range. So in this example, we're looking at the stimulus of having a decrease in water. So you could say that you are quite dehydrated. Which means that you're going to have a high concentration of solutes within your blood. Remember, solutes are things like salts and sugars. So there are receptors in your body, all throughout your body, but in particular near your brain, called osmoreceptors. Osmo referring to water, so these receptors, their specific job is to detect the level of water within your body. So that's a receptor that's responsible in this particular stimulus response model. Luckily for us, they're actually located in the brain, so they don't have to go far to get that message to the control center. This time they are accessing a specific part of our control center in our brain. They're accessing the hypothalamus. So it will receive the signals from our receptors, our osmoreceptors in the brain, and in doing so, it's then going to trigger our thirst center to release a particular hormone. Now, this is something new that we haven't talked about before, but it is something that you do need to be able to identify. So a hormone is a chemical that is secreted by different organs within our body, and as it interacts with different cells throughout our body, it can cause them to do different things. You've probably heard of hormones before in terms of things like testosterone, adrenaline, estrogen, those sorts of things. This is another example of one of those, but this one is called the antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. So I've written it down in the bottom right hand corner of the screen in case you forget it. So antidiuretic hormone. So when you're dehydrated, this hormone is released from your brain using our stimulus response model. And this hormone will travel through your bloodstream to our effectors. Now, our effectors in this particular example are our kidney tubules, or those nephrons within our kidneys. Okay, so our nephrons within our kidneys. That hormone triggers the cells that are making up those nephrons, or that triggers the, The hormone, antidiuretic hormone, triggers the cells that are making up your nephron tubules or your kidney tubules to become more permeable to water. So that means that they will allow water to pass through them much easier than what they would have done previously. And that leads to the response of an increased reabsorption of water back into your blood. So your blood is reabsorbing more water from your kidneys than it's releasing, which in turn also leads you to having less urine being produced. Okay, so remember our original stimulus was that there isn't very much water in our bloodstream, not very much water in our body. We're really, really dehydrated. We're going through our stimulus response model till we get to our response, which is causing our kidney tubules to allow our blood to reabsorb more water and keep that water inside our body so that we are preventing ourselves from becoming dehydrated. We want to increase the amount of water that's in our blood. The other thing that hormone, the antidiuretic hormone, will do is that it will trigger you to change your behavior, so that if you, I'm sure you've all noticed it, when you get thirsty, all you want to do is have a drink. So that sensation of feeling thirsty is actually triggered because of this antidiuretic hormone interacting with your cells in your body and triggering you to want to drink some water. That, of course, is obviously going to increase the amount of water that's in your blood too. All right, this one is a very similar example to what we looked on the previous slide. This time we're just reversing it. So this time our stimulus is actually an increase of water. So that means that we are very hydrated. So we've got lots of water in our body, in our blood, which means that the concentration of those salts and sugars or those solutes within our blood and our cells is quite low because they're being diluted by how much water is in our system. Again, we have those osmoreceptors, so water receptors, osmoreceptors in our brain detecting the level of water that is in our bodies and sending that signal to our control center, our brain. Again, we have the hypothalamus detecting that, and this time, instead of producing and releasing that hormone, antidiuretic hormone, this time we are inhibiting it, or we are stopping it. So we do not release ADH. That then means that the kidney tubules, or our nephrons in our kidneys, are not receiving the signal to be more permeable to water. They actually stay, I guess, their regular amount of permeability to water, which means that as a response, we're not going to reabsorb as much water back into our body. We're going to leave that water in our kidneys to be excreted as urine, and we obviously don't get the stimulus that we're feeling thirsty because we don't want our body to be drinking excess fluids. So we won't get that stimulus to pick up a drink and have a sip. So in this example, our stimulus was having too much water in our body, so a high level of water in our body, and our response, because we're looking at a negative feedback system, our response is to decrease the amount of water in our body, and we do that by decreasing the amount of water that's reabsorbed back into the body. We're allowing that water to exit our body through our kidneys in urine, and then past our bladder and out through the urethra. And obviously we're not going to have that sensation or the need to take another drink of water